5-4, proportions. If two ratios are equal, we say they're proportional. And we write it like this. You read that, 3-6 equals 1-2. Or 6-7 equals 12-14. Determine whether the ratios, whether needs an H, whether the ratios are proportional. This is the first kind of problem you're going to see. The way you work it is you cross multiply up. This is called the cross multiply up method. So you say 10 times 8, well that's 80, and 18 times 5. That is, let's see, 10 times 5 is 50, 8 times 5 is 40, that's 90. So, the answer is no. Those are not proportional. If those two numbers had been equal, the 90 and the 80, then they would have been proportional. So, the answer to this is no, because it says determine whether the ratios are proportional. So the answer is going to be yes they are or no they're not. In this case, it's a no. Okay, here's another problem. Same thing. Determine whether the ratios are proportional. Again, we're going to use the cross multiply up method. So we're going to start at the bottom, draw our arrow up, and we're going to say, okay, 12 times 15. We're going to put our answer here, and we're going to do 9 times 20 and put our answer there. So go ahead and pause the video for a second, figure out those two answers, and then come back and see if you got them right. Okay, when you multiply 12 times 15, you get 180. When you multiply 20 times 9, you also get 180. So these two ratios are proportional. So the answer is yes. Because remember, these directions say determine whether the ratios are proportional. Let's do another one. 3-4 and 5-6. What are we going to do? We're going to cross multiply up. Cross multiply up. 4 times 5 is 20. 6 times 3 is 18. Are those proportional? No, they are not. Okay, here's the next kind of problem. It's going to say find a ratio equivalent to each ratio. Then use the ratios to write a proportion. So, you're looking for something that's equal to 1/3. Now, a real easy way to find one that's equal or equivalent, because really equivalent's just a fancy word for equal, is if you multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, you'll have an equivalent. So 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. Now you have written a proportion, because we read this 1-3 equals 2-6. Those are equal. That whole thing is a proportion. Let's do the next one. Okay, 8/3. We want to write an equivalent ratio, and we're not real sure what one is, so we just multiply the top and bottom by 2. 8 times 2 is 16. 3 times 2 is 6. Those are equivalent ratios, and they form a proportion when you put them together. And the directions to this say find a ratio equivalent to each ratio, and then there's another part. The other part of the directions say then use the ratios to write a proportion. So some of your problems, it's going to be this whole thing for the answer when it asks for a proportion. Here's part 1 of video homework. Remember, you're going to use the cross multiply up method. And your answer, since it says determine, it's like decide whether the ratios are proportional. Determine. So you're going to answer yes or no. Okay, here's the second part of video homework. You're going to find an equivalent ratio, and then you're going to put an equal sign in between the two and make a proportion. Remember, if you can't just see something that's equivalent, you could always multiply by 2 for the top and the bottom, and that would give you an equivalent ratio. Have a super wonderful evening.